All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Smaha, and I'm Manomet's Director of Marketing and Communications. Thank you so much for joining us for Stories, Science, and Wilson's Plover Conservation. I'm pleased to be joined today by Abby Sterling, who is Manomet's Director for the Georgia Bight Shorebird Conservation Initiative, and Lydia Thompson, the author of Willa Gets Her Friendship Bands. For over 50 years, Manomet has been a leader in bird research and conservation. We use science and collaboration to strengthen flyways, coastal ecosystems, and working lands and seas across the Western Hemisphere. We do this work with many partners to help nature and local communities thrive. I have just a few quick things before we get started today. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see a box marked Q&A. If you don't see it right now, use your mouse and hover over it and the box should appear. If at any point during the presentation you have a question, please feel free to just click on that box and drop your question in, and we will try to answer as many questions as we possibly can at the end of today's presentation. If you're unable to stay for the entirety of today's presentation, it is being recorded. We will send you a follow-up email with a link to the recording in the next day or so. Thank you again for joining us. Now I'd like to turn it over to Abby and Lydia.
Great. Thank you so much, Danielle, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce Lydia first, and then we will get into reading Willa Gets Her Friendship Bands. Lydia Thompson has lived on the Georgia coast for over 30 years, and with her lifelong passion for birds, has been a huge advocate for coastal species, including shorebirds. So if anyone is joining from the Georgia coast on this call today, you have probably gotten to see Lydia on the beach or run into her while she's out looking at shorebirds. In addition to her love of birds, she is also a very talented artist, and she combines these two worlds to effectively connect people with the conservation of species and places. She's worked on Jekyll Island and St. Simon's to help grow volunteer programs of shorebird stewards, and to help raise awareness so that people know how to share the beach with nesting shorebirds like Wilson's plovers. She's currently got an exhibit at Art Trends, which is a gallery on St. Simon's Island. So if you're local, you should definitely check that out. And she's working on several other kids' books as well. This spring, we're working together to increase stewarding along the Georgia coast, and particularly at Gould's Inlet on St. Simon's Island. I have been working at Manomet for almost 3 years. I live in Brunswick, and I'm working on shorebird conservation across the Georgia Bight from Northeast Florida through to South Carolina. I originally discovered the Georgia coast and fell in love with shorebirds almost 15 years ago when I came to work on Little St. Simon's Island. I went to graduate school at the University of Georgia and studied nesting American oyster catchers and Wilson's plovers here in coastal Georgia for 3 summers. So I got a lot of up close and personal experience with these super cool little shorebirds. When Lydia wrote and illustrated her book about Willa, the Wilson's plover, I was very excited to see how her beautiful artwork could bring this story to life. So this afternoon, we're going to read the story of how Willa got her friendship bands. And then we're going to go behind the scenes to talk about art and research and how we can use these 2 different roads to get to the same destination of protecting Wilson's plovers. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see Lydia's beautiful illustrations and hear the story of how Willa got her friendship bands.
Willa's Grand Adventures. Willa Gets Her Friendship Bands. Written and illustrated by Lydia Thompson. Oh, hi there. There is so much to learn. I am running all around, but I am getting ahead of my story. Turn the page and let's get started. My name is Willa. I am a Wilson's plover. See my friendship bands? Aren't they pretty? Here is the tale of how I got them and how they will help me on my many adventures. My story begins with my mama and daddy. They met on the beach. Daddy loved to dance and sing. Mama thought he was wonderful. Wilson's Plovers range is from New Jersey south along the Atlantic coast, around the Gulf, and into the Caribbean. They looked for a place to build a nest in the dunes near the beach. They found a patch of panic grass that would do nicely. This dune grass swirled over the top of them like a tent. It was perfect for hiding their precious eggs. Birds camouflaged their nests so that they seemed to disappear into the background. Mama and Daddy took turns sitting on the eggs. Still, things can happen in the blink of an eye. Wilson's plovers protect their nests for 25 days. One night, Daddy had to make a quick run to the beach. "I'll be just a minute," he said. Just then, an opossum walked over the dunes and spotted our precious nest unguarded. "Oh, there is a nice meal." He headed for our nest. We were shaking in our shells. "Help!" we chirped. "Help! Mama! Daddy!" Our parents saw the opossum. Daddy ran back and covered us with his feathers. Mama rushed over to the possum and shouted, "Those are my babies. Leave them alone. Go on. Go away. Shoo!" Startled, the possum said, "Oh, I am so sorry. I didn't know they were your babies." We were safe with Mama and Daddy watching over us. We grew and grew. It began to get crowded in my little egg. I did a little stretch, and the tip of my beak tapped the shell and it cracked. I tapped it again, and it cracked a little more. I saw light. I blinked. It was so bright. It felt a little better. I could stretch and stretch. Breaking out of the eggshell is called pipping. Mama was right there beside me. My brother and my sister were tapping at their own shells. My legs and feet were a little wobbly. It was going to take a few hours before I could get to my feet. Plover chicks are hatched precocial. They are fully feathered and are able to move freely. They require little parental care. Before my sister, my brother, and I could start to run, 2 wildlife biologists walked up. Baby birds have a hard tip at the end of their beaks called an egg tooth to help break out of the shell. It takes about a day to fall off. Mama did her broken wing act. Dad whistled, "Hey, follow me." The biologists didn't look at Mama and Daddy. They were busy tenderly picking us up. They spoke quietly. "We'll just be a few minutes. We want to put some special bands on them so we know your babies when they are on the beach. We promise to bring them right back here." Taking a metal tool and my special friendship bands, the biologist said, "Don't worry, this is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, I will open the plastic-colored band. 2, I slip the band on your leg. 3, I close it." They took out a worn field notebook and wrote down the way the color bands went on my legs. Later, they posted these notes to the Wilson's Plover Working Group. Biologists turn in band records to the bird banding lab. This lab tells the biologists when their birds are relocated. See my pretty friendship bands? The biologists took us back to the nest. They carefully put us down. Mama ran up to us. We were safe with Mama and Daddy. Mama said, "Let's see, what will I call you?" "My precious little girl, your name is Alice. You have the green friendship band." "My baby boy, I will call you Yank. Your friendship band is blue." "And last but not least, my brave one, I name you Willa. Your friendship band is orange." Willa means determined protector. Mama and Daddy began our lessons on how to survive on the beach. They told us to always be aware of where we are and look for places to run so we can be safe. They also taught us to listen for a call. When we heard that wheat call, weep, wheat, we ran to the nearest hiding place, like the rack or a bush. One day, we were out learning how to find yummy crabs and worms when a big dog came loping down the beach. He saw us. When a dog or person causes the birds to fly, the birds lose energy necessary to find food, and adults can be separated from their chicks. The dog raced toward us. We knew the drill. We ran for the dunes. While Mama and Daddy flew in different directions, the dog followed them. Scared, we ran and ran and ran. Alice and Yank hid in the rack. I hid under a bush. Rack is old marsh grass and other vegetation piled up at the high tide line. Click, 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 click. A ghost crab skittered over the sand, snapping his claws. I turned to run back to the beach, but the ghost crab slipped to the side and blocked me. Oh boy, here's a tasty snack, the crab cackled. You cannot run from me. I am too fast. Suddenly, my daddy was there. He stood tall. Oh, no, you don't. That's my baby, he yelled, and flew at the crab. The crab sank to the sand and scurried away. After that, we stayed very close to Mama and Daddy. We grew and grew. Sometimes I stretched my stubby wings. I wished I had pretty long wings and could fly like Mama and Daddy. Before I knew it, I had long, pretty wings. I ran down the beach, flapping my wings. It takes about 6 weeks for a chick to grow up and fly. Lo and behold, I began to fly. At first, it was only for a short distance. Okay, so it was only a little ways down the beach, but I was flying. When a chick is able to fly, it is called a fledgling. Dad took us to a big flock of birds. He introduced me to black skimmers and royal terns. There were sanderlings that had just arrived from their summer home in the Arctic. My brother, sister, and I would sit in this large flock of friends and neighbors. Sometimes I would not see Yank or Alice, but that was all right, for I had my friends to hang out with on this beach. One day, after I finished my lunch, I decided to hang out with my friends and take a nap. Alice woke me. "Be careful," she whispered. "A group of people is coming down the beach toward us," she finished. It was a group of young birders with big scopes and binoculars. "Hey, look at that big flock of birds," Linda said as she took some pictures. Knox spotted me. "I found a Wilson's plover." Scott chimed in. "Hey, it has color bands. The left leg has a light blue band over a split band of yellow and red. The right leg has a light blue over orange. Let's turn this into eBird and see what we can find out about this plover," Alan piped up. eBird is an online checklist where birdwatchers can report the birds they find and learn where their birds were last seen. They were talking about my pretty bands. I am proud of my friendship bands. Now the birders will know me and they can follow me on my adventures. And you can too. The Wilson's plover is one of 6 plovers that regularly occur on the beaches of the east coast of North America and the Gulf of Mexico. It is larger than the semi-palmated plover, snowy plover, and piping plover, and smaller than the killdeer and black-bellied plover. The Wilson's plover is 6 to 7 inches tall. It is medium brown on the back to blend in with the beach and has a white throat and belly. Wilson's plovers do have a breast band, black for the males and brown for the immature and female. The telltale field mark that identifies the Wilson's plover from other plovers is the large, thick bill. Wilson's plovers only nest on sandy beaches. Those sandy beaches have become our playground, and we are crowding the birds out to unsafe places. They blend so well with the beach, they often go unnoticed. However, with a little education, you will see these birds. Once you see them, you will want to share the beach with them. Here are a few things we can do to help these charming birds. These birds nest on our beaches from April through August. During the nesting season, give the birds space. Leave your dogs at home or keep them on short leashes. Never run through resting beach birds. It stresses the birds and they burn energy they need to find food. There are several Wilson's plover working projects throughout the southeastern United States. Scientists are studying the birds, where they nest, and what threats are out there for the birds. They are color banding the chicks in the nests to see where these birds go after fledging. Here is how you record the bands. Note the color and position of each band on the legs. Start with the left leg and read the bands from top to bottom, then right leg top to bottom. It will help if you can photograph the birds. Please report color-banded plovers to whipple.banded@gmail.com. Another email address is bandreports@usgs.gov.
Great. So that is the story of how Willa gets her friendship bands. Lydia, thank you so much for the wonderful story. I'm so excited that we got to share it with everyone today. So we're going to now go a little bit behind the scenes of the story and talk more about the background of some of these beach nesting birds, and then talk a little bit more about what it was like to write this book and how Lydia uses art and storytelling and stewarding to really help protect Wilson's plovers on the coast of Georgia. Wilson's plovers, American oyster catchers, and seabirds, like least terns, nest here on the Georgia coast throughout spring and summer. As we learned in Lydia's book, they make nests and lay their eggs right out on the open beach, and the eggs and chicks blend in really well with their surroundings. Wilson's plovers are territorial, so they set up nests on the beach and defend the space around their nests starting in March. And they have a lot of different displays that they use to establish their territories, and both the parents have cool behaviors to defend nests as well. We heard that Willa's parents performed a broken wing display, and that's where they pretend to be injured and lure predators or threats away from the nest. And after about 25 days, the eggs hatch and the chicks leave the nest within a day or so, and as a family, they begin running all around the beach. So they are very charismatic birds and a lot of fun to watch. And Lydia, you captured so many of the behaviors so well in this. I know that you have a lot of field sketches from all your time watching Wilson's plovers in the course of your work that went into this book. I think anybody local is probably, if they know you, Lydia, they know that you're holding three things usually: binoculars, a camera so that you can get snapshots of the birds when they're out on the beach, and sometimes a sketchbook. And you're actually doing sketches in the field, right, to capture all of these really cool behaviors. I'm going to actually really quickly pull up the storyboard that you shared with me. So Lydia was telling me when she was writing this book, she surrounded herself with sketches all around of Willa and her siblings on the beach. And so I wanted to just show y'all a little bit of kind of what that looks like. You'll be able to see, can y'all see that? Lydia, did that work? Can folks see that drawing board? Hopefully.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to really capture what these little chicks are doing on the beach by just gesture. And these are some gestures.
Yeah.
It inspires me to do more.
It's fantastic. I was wondering if you would just, explain a little bit about some of the fun things that you get to see the little plovers do, maybe as they're learning how to feed with their parents, or learning all of the tricks of the trade of what it takes to be a Wilson's plover.
Well, the first thing that I notice about Wilson's plovers are they are stealth birds, and the chicks are taught to kind of flatten their body and then scoot. So they're not running up and down and up and down and up and down. They're actually just scooting along there. So they're not as noticeable on the beach. You don't know how many times I've been out with folks and I always have a pointer, a person I assign to look in the rack for these birds, because you can be almost on top of them and not see them because they blend so well. But once you see them, they have such personality with the large eyes and kind of looking at you sheepishness. I can't say that. Anyway, sheepish.
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah,
like, I don't see you.
They are masters of blending in for sure. And
Yes.
With your work, you really do capture that so well. And they're also running around learning what to eat with their parents, right? So.
Oh, yes, they are. They're probing in the sand. They generally are out at as the tide is going out, because the creatures that they eat, the sand fiddlers, are closer to the surface, so it makes it easier to pick it up and scump it down. They also, I noticed there was one day I went out and I couldn't find any birds at all, but I was snapping pictures as I went. And when I went home and looked on the screen and at some of the grasses, I found the chicks. They were that good at hiding.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see that in some of my sketches, especially in the book.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love too, is as they get older, they get more confident. When they're really small, they blend in perfectly and they tuck into tiny little crevices and you'll never know they're there. Little footprints or little depressions, they'll just sink right down. But then once they start to get older and older, you'll see them sort of outstanding with their parents, but they are very vigilant, right? Always looking for threats and predators.
Yes, because they can't fly, so that's what they've got to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of like when I watch them. Can you see this? If I hold that up, yeah, this is what they do. It's kind of like all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating. I love how you're able to capture all of these observations through art. I am not so talented at all. So I capture my observations in my trusty field notebook when I'm out on the beach and doing research about Wilson's plovers. And that was another thing that I was hoping we could talk a little bit about, is just the important role of research and science that you're able to really capture in Willa's story. There were biologists, obviously, that banded the chicks, and then community scientists, the young birders that you included in the end of the story, who recited and reported Willa's unique band combination. So I spent 3 years researching nesting Wilson's plovers for my PhD at University of Georgia to better understand how birds choose nest sites, why they pick the places they do to put their eggs, and then try to understand how conditions on the beach, like the amount of vegetation or weather conditions, influenced how successful the birds are. And I was banding chicks like Willa. And so banding is really an important way that we researchers and scientists can understand survival of the birds and even where birds go. So this is very exciting. Just yesterday, I got an email from a birder here in Georgia, Richard Hall, who found one of the chicks that I banded on Little St. Simons in 2015, and he recited that bird. Also, it hatched on Cumberland Island, and he recited it on Little St. Simons. And so she's a 7-year-old Wilson's plover now. And we really wouldn't know anything like that if we didn't band these birds.
What's her color bands?
Oh,
Do you remember? Is she the white, yellow, white?
She is not. So Lydia and I are talking about a bird that we have been watching at one of the places where Wilson's plovers are nesting on St. Simons at Gould's Inlet. And last year there was a banded bird that nested there. And that was her second year on St. Simons?
Yeah, that's her second year. Plus she nested on Jekyll Island. Her first year, she was banded on Little Cumberland. Nested the first year on Little St. Simons, and then on Jekyll, and then the last 2 years on at Gould's.
Yeah,
So
so this is, at the end of Willa's story, you say, now everyone can follow Willa. And this is exactly what researchers are able to do when we put these unique color combinations on birds. They get like an identity. And I think we all get very attached. And I know anybody who gets to see a banded bird, can really build kind of an emotional connection with that individual when it's got the bands. And that is really important, not just for Wilson's plovers, but for many different species of shorebirds. Migrating shorebirds like red knots and endangered shorebirds like piping plovers. So I think probably many folks that are joining us this afternoon might know of one or two banded birds that they heard about or follow, or maybe even feel like they have that sort of personal connection to. There's, of course, the pretty famous red knot B95 was banded and named moonbird because it really started to show just how far some of these species migrate over the course of their lifetime of being seen at the same spots time and time again, and are identifiable because of those bands. So one thing, just for, I think, folks listening in and joining us this afternoon, is it's always really helpful to look at birds' legs when you're out on a beach. If you've got binoculars or a good camera or a spotting scope and you can observe shorebirds from a distance, take a look at their legs, and you might actually be able to see and report color bands. And then you can learn a lot of cool information about that bird, like how long it has been alive, or where it hatched, or where it might go. All sorts of really important information that helps us as we're doing conservation and trying to think about how to protect that on the ground that these birds need.
And I want to add that it also, for the observer, helps them to absorb a little bit more than just the bird itself. If you're looking at the color bands, then you're looking at maybe what the legs are doing, and that's all part and parcel of having the experience of being on the beach with these incredible creatures.
Yeah, I think really taking the time to notice those details is one of the things that I think you really excel at, and you help connect people to understanding that those important details relate to behavior and relate to the life of the bird, and those are really great things to notice. One thing I just wanted to say, if folks are interested in getting involved in research of shorebirds, you can reach out to us at Manomet, local state agencies like your local DNR or local Audubon groups to see if there's any active projects going on where you can volunteer, or obviously resighting birds is a really good way. But one thing that's really important to remember that I wanted to say is it's important that during nesting season especially, you really shouldn't go above the tide line or try to look for bird nests, right? Like Willa's story and all of this research is being done with special training and permits. So generally, it is really the best course of action is staying low on the beach during nesting season so that you don't accidentally disturb these birds that are trying to nest. And if you see birds on the beach during the nesting season, it's really good to watch them from a distance, take the time to notice those really cool details, but make sure you give them plenty of space so that they're able to successfully nest and raise their chicks on the beach.
Can I add,
yes.
it's another really cool thing to do is to go bring a chair on the beach. That's the way I learned my shorebirds years and years ago, is I just had a backpack and my scope and my drawing pad, and I just went and sat on the beach. And if you sit still, before you know it, you'll have them all around you. And for an artist, that gives you an opportunity to draw. And and I enjoy doing the draw a bird for classes.
Yeah, that was one of the things
the kids involved.
Going to talk about. Yeah, so I think you're just so great at using art to connect people with nature and with their own backyards and with the shorebirds, and helping them learn to identify shorebirds through drawing them, and learn more about what each little piece of a shorebird does through drawing it. And I'm always so impressed by the way that you really are able to kind of build these connections between people and their environment through art. And so Lydia has held workshops, like she mentioned, to teach people about how to draw birds and how to know those important details. And then she's also worked with kids to create signs that we use to remind people to give nesting birds space. So we have areas on the coast here in Georgia. St. Simon's has one at Gould's Inlet where we put up symbolic fencing, stakes and ropes and signs to help people realize that there's nesting birds there and to stay out of those particular areas. And one of the things that is so helpful is having adorable signs that are made by kids. And so Lydia has gone into schools and taught the kids all about how they can share the beach with the birds, and then have them actually draw signs that are printed up, and we put those around the exclosure as well. I think it really does warm people's hearts and makes them even more excited about protecting places for shorebirds. I wondered, Lydia, if you could just provide some of your insights about over the course of your work, how you feel like art really helps connect people to birds.
Oh, well, as you were talking, I remember working with Mrs. Daltrey's art class, art club, and I came in, did my little spiel about the birds, and then I did a draw a bird, which is I start off with what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Well, in drawing bird, an egg comes first because you draw the oval of the body, and the kids really got it. And what was really very interesting about that is one of the young artists came out to Gould's on a regular basis during the summer months to check on the birds and her signs. So, you know, this child might not have known about Wilson's Plovers had I not come in, but she had a direct connection to them because she could say that was her sign, that she did that. And she was so cute out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing, just, you know, I think many of us have Lydia's art. I think those of us that live on the coast and love shorebirds and seabirds, I wanted to share, this is a tern chick that Lydia drew and sketched, and just the level of detail and the colors and all of the really incredible, beautiful things that you don't really notice unless you get a chance to kind of pay attention to those details. Do you feel like through your art, you try to just show people things that they wouldn't normally see? Do you feel like you
yes.
anybody into bird lovers through your art?
Oh, that's my goal. That is one of my goals. And yes, by going into the schools and talking to them, we talk about Wilson's Plovers, which are shorebirds, and Wilson's Plovers have family units. It's mama and daddy and the kids, and mama and daddy take care of the kids, which is something we can all identify with. But in a leased tern colony, it's a neighborhood. So the kids are all playing in the streets, running up and down, and the parents are all watching them and coming in and feeding them. And this is something that a child came up with by us talking about it. It's being able to have them connect and tell you something instead of you telling them everything. They begin to see things, and that's what starts people going, well, I want to go out and see what they're doing now. What can I add?
Yeah.
And that's the curiosity. Add that curiosity.
Yeah. I feel like definitely through your art, you know, you do cultivate that sense of wonder, and really think storytelling is such an important vehicle to connect people to their environment. And I think really storytelling is almost the basis of some of the stewarding activities that you're really involved in. You know, stewarding is of course an important way to teach people about nesting birds and give people the information that they need to act in ways to help protect all sorts of beach wildlife, right? Like we're basically stewards, kind of provide a voice for the birds, and it's made up of volunteers who are trained to talk with people on the beaches, people who might not even realize that there are birds like Wilson's plovers or least terns, depending on those same places where they might just be thinking about swimming or running or relaxing. So I'm always very impressed with the way that you you kind of encourage stewards to tell the stories of the birds and make it personal and connect them with this family of plovers or this neighborhood of least terns. And so one of the things that we do is, you know, stewards find people that staying on the wet sand when there are nesting birds is very important. And that reminder might be the difference between birds successfully raising a chick like Willa, who's a little fuzzy peanut running around on the beach, or not successful. And, you know, we have the nesting areas that are roped off with signs to encourage people to give birds space, but a steward kind of explains that why piece, right? And that's so important for people who maybe are visiting the coast, or maybe they've lived here forever and they didn't even know what was going on. I think in some of the work that I've done, you know, the why is really important. Like, you talk a little bit about in Willa's story, and that's a really important one. You know, off-leash dogs can pose some significant threats to shorebirds as well, but helping connect people, right, with the birds and explaining that why is so important.
Well, can I go? I can mention a little bit about the dog part of it. I also work with dogs, and one of the things that I have learned over the many years that I've been doing the steward work, I started off, you know, I've learned, but it's building those connections. You get one person, and you do this with dog training. You start with one exercise and you build on that. So you see these people on a regular basis out on the beach, and you build relationships with them too. They're coming up and asking you about the birds instead of you going up to them, or they're telling their friend, let's come over and see what's going on. And it's there's a relationship that you're building, and you're also building stewards by doing this, because they are being stewards. Now, they might not know the proper way of talking to people, which is very important.
Yeah, I've watched you at work and seen your magic, Lydia, and I feel like you may know the names of every single dog that visits schools at St. Simon's. You might not know all of the people who own the dogs, but you know every single dog. And it is just, I mean, I think most people that visit the beach or, you know, have dogs love animals and wildlife. And so we were just recently putting up the rope line at St. Simon's at Gould's Inlet, and so many people came up to us and they were so excited that the beach nesting birds were coming back. And that level of connection is really about helping people feel proud of their beach for supporting birds, and helping them take some ownership, right? So that they can be like good hosts and, you know, sharing with them that there are successes happening right in their own backyard. Because Wilson's plovers are a high priority species in Georgia, and we know all of these beach nesting birds are really vulnerable. So it does take kind of a village. You know, we all have to work together to help them successfully raise and fledge their babies. I know one of the best ways, one of my favorite ways, and I think yours too, to help people understand is to show them the birds, right? And really getting the chance to have them see it firsthand and make that connection. I wondered if you might have any stories that kind of stand out in your mind from your time stewarding, and just really how you work to build that connection between people and the birds that are using the beaches.
Well, I'm going to start off with a little bit about how I did it wrong. In the beginning, I started around 98, noticing that I was losing my Wilson's plovers on Jekyll, and all the birds were being disturbed on a regular basis. So, you know, you'd go out and you would say, "Hey, don't disturb the birds," you know, and these poor people don't know about birds. In fact, most of them go, "What birds?" So I learned after a while to kind of position myself in front of them so that I would have my scope ready to show them the birds if they wanted to see them. And, you know, by doing this, I learned how to be an ambassador. And that was the important thing. And I also thought that getting children involved is they're more willing to listen to you. And one of my favorite stories is I was out on the rope line just kind of looking at the different birds, and I had my scope up on a Wilson's plover nest, and the bird was sitting, and a little boy came up, so I lowered the scope and I said, now just watch. And he sat there, and the Wilson's plover stood up, and there was a chick underneath it, and this little boy turned around to his mother and he said, it's alive. And it was like, I've never seen an alive thing before. It's that making them aware that there's life beyond just that puddle of water out there.
Yeah, totally. It is just getting to see that moment is so rewarding. And I feel like for so many people, I say the beach is like a sandbox next to a swimming pool. And our job is teaching them that habitat, and it's habitat that's so important to some of these very vulnerable species like Wilson's plovers. And you show somebody a little, I mean, are just a couple inches tall. They are just little delicate fuzzballs, but also incredibly tough. And you show them these little fuzzes out on the beach, and it is that's one of the best ways, I think, to make a connection. Well, I think we're gonna try to make sure we leave some time for questions, but I wanted to see, Lydia, if you had anything else you wanted to add before we do that. This time
well,
went so
I can
fast.
always I can always use more people to walk the rope line, or to learn how to talk, or just to learn how to draw on the beach. I think by drawing in the sand, there's something that connects the touching of the sand and drawing the critter that kind of connects the two.
Yeah, I love that. For
like
those
that,
of you that don't, Lydia's talking about when she takes people out on the beach, sometimes to help them understand what she's talking about when she's trying to identify shorebirds, she'll actually draw the shorebird in the sand and point out key features, which is like one of my favorite things to watch is you connecting with folks through that method, because I think it really does help drive those messages home.
Can I say that what y'all are doing at Manomet and up and down the coastline is very valuable. And my job as an artist, as an advocate for what y'all are doing, is to connect the people to what you're doing, because I've learned so much through science, through banding, through learning how scientists think, that I want to share that with people, because I think that it creates that curiosity that carries people beyond just the sandbox, just the bird sitting on the beach, just the stamp a name on something.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for that, Lydia. I think it definitely is a team effort, and all of the different roads to that same destination. That's what we've got to figure out how to bring together. So we'll make sure that we leave time for questions. We've got 15 minutes for questions. So if anyone has questions about shorebirds or Willa, the Wilson's plover, or how art and science and storytelling and stewarding all work together to connect people to the conservation of shorebirds, we would love to have a discussion about that. But first, I'd like to thank all of you for joining on what here in Georgia is a beautiful spring afternoon. And thank you, Lydia, for just your incredible perspectives, your really beautiful art that helps connect so many people to this important place that we love and try to protect, and your endless energy and enthusiasm and commitment to protect our beach nesting birds. I know sometimes it's thankless, other times it's incredible, but you are out there doing it all, and our birds are better off for you. So thank you so much. I think what we'll do is I'll turn it back to Danielle to field questions and answers if we have any.
Wonderful. Thank you both. So Lydia, I have a question for you that came in from David McLean. What are your favorite sketching tools? Pencil, charcoal, pen?
Colored pencils. Colored pencils, Sharpies in the field, and anything, you know, but I carry a little sheet of paper around with me and I sketch. When I'm by myself, I do a whole lot more sketching than when I'm with people. When I'm with people, I'm using sand. So that's it. But no, colored pencils or watercolor pencils are so wonderful.
Excellent. And the first question that came in today was from John Stanton, and he wanted to know, this is a very important one, has the book been published, and where and how do you obtain a copy?
It is through Book Logic, and it's a print-on-demand book, but I would love to have a publisher so that I could put it up and down the coast. I really want this to go out to all the beaches areas, because I think that it's a tool that we can use to help piping plovers, Wilson's plovers, snowy plovers. There are all these wonderful beach nesting birds, and the color bands and the scientists that are doing this, it adds a challenge to it. But so Book Logic, and you can go to my website, Artworks by Lydia, and you can buy the book right from there.
Excellent. I'll add in a question. So Abby, I know you've been spending some time out in the field recently. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing?
Yeah, actually, Lydia and I were just out yesterday. Yeah. So this is a very exciting time on the Georgia coast, right? Because we've got migration happening full steam ahead, where we've got shorebirds coming up from the southern, South America, moving up towards the Arctic where they're going to nest. So we're seeing birds like whimbrels coming back. We're seeing all sorts of new birds arriving, but it's also a very busy season because it's nesting season. And so we've got Wilson's plovers, American oyster catchers, nesting right now, setting up territories, and laying eggs. So Tim Kai's Georgia DNR has been doing surveys up and down the coast, and he's found a number of oyster catcher nests. Some of the people that work on their islands have found nests. We had the very first Wilson's plover nest of the season at Gould's Inlet on St. Simon's. And Gould's Inlet is a really cool place because it's a public access beach. It's part of East Beach on St. Simon's Island. So if anybody's familiar locally with that area, it's kind of the northernmost section of the beach. Really dynamic. There's really lovely dunes that have built up. And that area of the beach is a critical place for wildlife. And so those dunes help support all sorts of other species, including shorebirds and seabirds that will nest there. We saw the first couple least terns of the season who are just coming back from South America, and I think they were scoping out Gould's Inlet. They've nested there in the past, and actually Gould's Inlet has been one of the most successful least tern colonies on the whole Georgia coast. So even though the place is very busy with a lot of people coming and going, we have rope lines up and signs to help people be more aware. And then Lydia's done tons of work getting people excited about protecting those places for the shorebirds that are nesting there. So we, I think, are in the thick of it here in Georgia, getting to see all of these exciting things happening right now.
Excellent. And so what kind of recommendations do you have for any families who are on our meeting today looking to take their kids and introduce them to the wonders of shorebirds or the wonders of art?
Yeah. Do you want to start, Lydia, with thinking about art? I know there's definitely some great ways that you can connect locally, and please feel free. We'll share our contact information if if anyone joining today is local. We can loop you in with some of the work that's happening here in Georgia, because we love to get a chance to show people what's going on. I think, reaching out, Manomet can help connect you to many different things that are going on. Reaching out to local Audubon groups is another really great way to get connected. Lydia, what have you got? Anything about, I think Lydia might be having some connection troubles.
I think so.
I'm back.
Okay.
It's okay. I lost
do
you.
you have any good suggestions for folks that might have kids that are interested in connecting through art and birds, maybe?
What I've discovered lately is field sketching, and there are a lot of really great how-tos. There are little booklets that kids can take out into the field and do learn how to do quick little sketches. And I think anytime you can, I'm dyslexic, is the best way to put it. I see things backwards and all of that, but the way that they keep me grounded is by drawing, because drawing connects the eyes to the brain, because the pencil is reinforcing it. And I think that's what field sketching does. And that's what keeping a field notebook, like your notebook, and I have reams of notebooks in there with, notes jotted and little sketches of done in pen and ink. And, I think that's the way to do it, is, and have little Girl Scout troops. I've worked with Girl Scout troops and Boy Scout, learning how to draw and going out and looking at birds, and hopefully they will carry that on. You never know. You're looking for that spark. You're looking for that little flame that will inspire. And it might be drawing, it may be writing, but it's something that you're looking for. And even in adults too. Adults need to reconnect. And that's what they're doing on the beach anyway. Especially in this year of COVID, the first thing happened when the beach were open down here is everybody raced to the beach and was exercising. And by getting out there and doing a little bit more, it'll take away from that isolation that you feel, because you're connected.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is kind of taking the time to really learn and investigate, and however you do it, whether it's through writing or journaling or drawing, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be good, but it's something to build on, and you never know what really might inspire somebody to become passionate and a voice for protecting these important places.
I call it layering experiences. So you go out, the first time you see something, you may think you see, but the next time you go out, you'll see a little bit more. And if you're drawing, that first wobbly line that you make is just a wobbly line, but the next one is going to be a little bit more confident. Each time you do this, it's just layering. You're always experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it, even when thinking about like shorebird ID, which can be really daunting to people. Layering, just adding to it every time. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, I've started so many people with little brown birds, and I'm all excited about them, and they're going, but they all look alike. No, they don't. So yeah, it's kind of
lots of layers.
Yeah. To point out things.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I go show them a cardinal. Or painted bunting.
I think we have time for one more question. So does Georgia have significant horseshoe crab spawning and thus shorebird feeding?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And that's coming from our friend Dave in South Carolina. And so the Georgia Bight is a very important place for birds that feed on horseshoe crabs when they're spawning. And we actually saw some pretty early spawning events this spring that started. One of the state biologists, Fletcher Smith, was doing some surveys and saw horseshoe crabs spawning maybe even almost 2 weeks ago, possibly with the last full moon. So we typically see those kinds of events tied to the highest high tides with the full and new moon. And they absolutely fuel shorebird migration. The eggs are just little, easy to digest, energy-packed food resources for birds. And so we'll see all these different shorebirds feeding on them. Right now, we're just mostly having our resident wintering local red knots feeding on them. But as migration moves forward, we'll start to see birds from farther south in South America moving up and stopping here. And some very cool research out of South Carolina has shown that the birds are actually feeding here on horseshoe eggs and coquina clams as well. And that is fuel enough for them to make it all the way from here in the southeast up to the Arctic. So it's a really important part of the spring and something folks should definitely be out, on the lookout for. It's a very cool phenomenon.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Abby and Lydia. That was a really fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed hearing about the connection between art and science and shorebirds, and I hope that many of you on this webinar enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much to all of you who joined us this afternoon. As I mentioned, we'll be sending you a link to the recording so you could share it with your friends. And we'll also include some information about how you can find out more about Lydia and Willa Gets Her Friendship Bands. So thank you all, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.